You ever notice how life doesn't shatter with a bang, but with a whisper? That's how it started for me. Not with a slammed door or a screaming match, but with a coffee cup, still warm, sitting untouched on the kitchen counter at 7:46 a.m. on a Wednesday. Monica always drank her coffee. Cream, no sugar. She claimed sugar was the enemy, even though she hid a stash of chocolate in the sewing drawer. But that morning, her mug just sat there, steam curling up like the ghost of a goodbye she hadn't said yet. I stood in the doorway, toothbrush in hand, half-dressed and already late for work. "You okay?" I asked. She didn't look up from her phone. "Yeah, fine." Now, fine is marriage code for absolutely not fine. And if you don't figure out why, I'll make your life a game show with no correct answers. But I wasn't thinking that. I just nodded and went back to brushing my teeth, like an idiot. At 9:12 a.m., a text came through. From a number I didn't recognize. Just 5 words. "You should probably ask her." That was it. No name. No context. Just a warning label on the grenade I didn't know was already rolling toward my life. When I confronted her that night, Monica didn't flinch. She sat on the edge of the couch, phone still in her lap, and said, "It's been over for a long time, Adam. You just didn't notice." She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She said it like she was returning a library book. "And him?" I asked. She sighed. "Don't make this about him." That's when I realized I wasn't even the star of my own betrayal. I was a side character in a romance subplot she'd been directing behind my back. No dramatic music. No teary confession. Just facts, laid out like receipts. "His name is Jonah," she said. And I didn't cheat. I just moved on. Moved on. I looked around the room. The couch we bought after our first tax return. The painting we argued about for weeks. The photo of our trip to Oregon, where she made me climb a hill for a sunset we never saw because of fog. Moved on? This was our life. She stood up, brushed a non-existent thread from her blouse, and said, "I'm staying at my sister's tonight." And just like that, she was gone. The door closed with a soft click. Not a bang. Just a whisper. I stood in the silence. The coffee was still warm. 2 days after Monica left, the universe decided to double down. I'd barely unpacked my duffel bag at a budget motel, think beige walls and vending machines with off-brand candy, when I got a knock on the door. Not a dramatic bang. Just a polite, hesitant tap-tap. Like someone unsure if they were interrupting something important, which, to be fair, they weren't. I'd been staring at a styrofoam cup of soup like it might reveal the secrets of the universe. I opened the door. There stood a teenager. Lanky. Nervous. 18. Maybe 19. Dark hair. Familiar eyes. He looked like someone trying very hard not to fidget. "Mr. Keller?" he asked. "Depends who's asking." "I'm Eli. Eli Brenner. I think I'm your son." My brain did a full reboot. Like someone unplugged the router and all I could do was blink. Eli looked terrified. "I'm sorry. I'm not here to mess up your life. My mom was Jessica Brenner. University of Michigan. Sophomore year. You too." "Dated for 3 weeks," I finished. He nodded. "She said you transferred before she could tell you. I didn't even know your name until after she passed. Cancer. Last year." I looked at him, really looked at him, and suddenly I was 20 again, in a dorm hallway, kissing a girl with cinnamon in her hair and a laugh like loose change in a dryer. Jessica. And now here was this kid. My kid? I let him in. Sat across from him in the scratchy motel chair. He pulled out a photo. Jessica and me, arms around each other, the kind of picture you think disappears when college ends. "I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "No money. No drama. I just wanted to meet you." I nodded, still trying to breathe. "And how'd you find me?" He smiled, just a little. "Internet. And Monica posted about the house 2 years ago." Google filled in the blanks. Monica. Right. The ghost in the kitchen. The coffee that never got drunk. "I think we need a DNA test," I said. "Already booked one," he replied, pulling out a folded paper. "Just wanted to ask if you'd do it." There was a beat of silence. Then I nodded. "Yeah, kid. Let's do it." As he left, I stood by the door, holding that photo like it might burn a hole through my hand. My life was becoming a very specific type of country song. Cheated on, abandoned, and now surprised by a kid I didn't know I had. But weirdly, it was the first time in days I didn't feel completely empty. The DNA test came back on a Thursday. I read it in my car, parked outside a laundromat that smelled like lost hopes and dryer sheets. Probability of paternity, 99.9987%. Science doesn't pull punches. I stared at that number like it owed me an apology. 18 years of nothing, and now boom. Dad. A title I never auditioned for but apparently landed anyway. I called Monica. She answered on the third ring, her voice clipped, like I was interrupting her audiobook. What? It's true. He's mine. Long pause. I pictured her, probably at her sister's, glass of something expensive in one hand, pity-free expression in the other. I see, she finally said. I didn't know, Monica. You keep saying that like it matters. I didn't reply. There was no point. She had already decided I was guilty not of cheating, but of existing in a way that disappointed her. Same verdict, different courtroom. I want to meet him again, I said. I'm not stopping you. Just don't expect me to care. Click. Line dead. Metaphor complete. I drove to the Holiday Inn and knocked on room 214. Eli opened the door, phone in hand, earbuds slung around his neck. Well, you're officially stuck with me, I said. He laughed. First time I heard him really laugh. We spent the next 3 hours at a diner. No agenda, no big speeches. Just pancakes and catch-up. He talked about photography, obscure sci-fi books, and how he once built a rocket engine in a garage. I told him I once built a coffee table that collapsed under its own confidence. At one point he asked, "Are you mad?" About what? Not knowing about me. I shook my head. Can't be mad about something you never had. Only thing I'm mad about is the coffee. He blinked. What coffee? Never mind, I said. Inside joke. With myself. Later, I dropped him off. He gave me a nod, awkward, hopeful, like he didn't know how to say goodbye without sounding needy. You did all right, kid, I told him. You don't know me yet, he said. No, but I know you showed up. That counts. He smiled and disappeared into the hotel lobby. I sat in the car a long time after that, the DNA paper still on the passenger seat. For the first time since Monica walked out, I didn't feel like I was free-falling. I had something real now. A connection. Not clean. Not easy. But real. The kind of real that starts with awkward silences and ends with pancakes. 3 weeks passed. That's how long it took for the silence between me and Monica to harden into something less like grief and more like resentment with a frozen crust. I hadn't been back to the house. She hadn't invited me. Technically, it was still half mine, but there are some places you don't return to without a hazmat suit or a lawyer. Then came the call. Not from her. From her sister. Adam, Janice began. You need to know something. Now, Janice and I had always maintained a delicate truce. Her, the protective older sibling. Me, the man who married her golden girl and never quite lived up to the pedestal. She didn't call unless it mattered. It's about Monica, she continued. She's seeing someone. I almost laughed. She left me 3 weeks ago. I assumed that was the point. It's not new, Adam. The temperature in my motel room dropped about 20 degrees. My grip on the phone tightened. What are you saying? She's been with him for months. I thought you knew. I didn't answer. I didn't even breathe. I didn't want to be involved, Janice said. But she's been spinning this story. To our family. To friends. Says you cheated. That Eli's proof. She's using my son to cover her own affair? Janice sighed. You deserve to know. She's rewriting the script, Adam. And people are buying it. Of course they were. Monica had always been the better storyteller. The one who could cry on cue or deliver a monologue over wine and goat cheese that made even her worst moments sound poetic. I was just the guy who taught high school English and thought trust was built in Sunday routines. That night, I sat in my car outside the house we used to call ours. Same front porch. Same flower beds I'd spent a summer mulching while she laughed about my farmer's tan. The porch light was on. She was home. I didn't ring the bell. I texted her instead. Me, we need to talk. Her, not tonight. Me, I know about him. Her, so? That's what she sent. Like I'd asked if she was still using almond milk in her coffee, and she didn't feel like elaborating. I rang the bell anyway. She opened the door with the kind of look that could freeze traffic. A glass of wine in her hand. Bare feet. New haircut. Really, she said. You're just going to show up? Like you never did anything wrong? She didn't flinch. What do you want, Adam? I want to know when you decided I didn't matter. She rolled her eyes and turned back inside. Come in, then. Let's do this. The living room was cleaner than I remembered. Sterile. Even the couch pillows sat like obedient dogs waiting for commands. He'd been here. I knew it in the way the throw blanket was folded with military precision. The scent of a cologne I didn't wear clung to the air like a whisper someone forgot to shut up. You want to yell? She asked, sitting on the arm of the chair we used to fight over. No, I said. I want the truth. She sipped her wine. Fine. We were dying long before Eli showed up. Admit it. We were a routine. A rerun. Comfortable, but not alive. And Jonah made you feel alive? I asked. She shrugged. At least he noticed me. I stood still. Like if I moved too fast, I'd fracture. You could have said something. I did, she snapped. You just didn't hear me. No, I said, calm now. You didn't say it. You hinted. You resented. You left wine glasses drying next to his on the counter and expected me to read the tea leaves. It doesn't matter anymore, she said. It does, I replied. Because now you're telling people I cheated. That Eli is proof I broke us. You did break us, she said, standing now. With your passivity. With your quiet disappointments and your shrinking ambition. You stopped trying. And you started lying, I countered. We stood in that tense stillness only long marriages can produce, equal parts exhaustion and history, two people too familiar to destroy each other quickly. Why didn't you just leave? I asked. Because I didn't want to be the villain. I stared at her. So you made me one. There it was. No dramatics. No shouting. Just the truth. She didn't want to be the one who walked out, so she gave me just enough rope to hang myself with her version of the story. I'll be seeing Eli again, I said. I figured. He wants to meet you. That gave her pause. For the first time that night, her mask cracked just a hair. I'm not ready. You don't get to decide that, I said, turning for the door. You gave up your vote when you lied. As I walked away, she said, he doesn't need this drama. No, I said, turning back. But he deserves the truth. And so do I. I didn't slam the door. Just closed it behind me like a chapter that wouldn't end until the last word was mine. You ever notice how memory doesn't ask permission before it shows up? Like a rude house guest, it kicks the door in, sits on your chest, and makes you watch reruns of every moment you ignored your gut. That's how I ended up back at the house I used to call home, standing in the driveway like a man returning to a crime scene he didn't commit, but somehow still feels guilty for. It wasn't planned. I just drove. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted to feel something stronger than resentment. What I found was the porch light on, candles flickering inside, and a dinner table set for two. 2 plates. Her favorite wine, half-port. A roast in the oven. The scent of rosemary and garlic hit me before the guilt did. I knocked. Once. Soft. Like a question. She opened the door and blinked. Adam. I didn't speak. Just looked at the table, then back at her. Oh, she said quickly. It's not what you think. That phrase should come with a trigger warning. I was expecting Jonah, she added. Like that made it better. I nodded, like someone acknowledging a bus schedule. Didn't realize roast chicken was part of the infidelity package. She crossed her arms. You shouldn't be here. Neither should your guest, I said. She didn't reply. Just stepped aside and let me in. Like old habits die hardest when dressed in domestic lighting. I walked to the table. Looked down at the napkin ring I bought her our second Christmas. The wine glasses from our anniversary set. Every little touch screamed of a life she didn't earn anymore. You went all out, I said, tapping the rim of a glass. Trying to impress him? He's already impressed, she said, and there it was, her voice like sugar covering venom. Was it worth it? I asked. Trading 20 years for a man who owns 2 boats but can't spell subtlety? She stared at me like I was a crossword puzzle with 1 square missing. You don't get to judge. I don't need to judge. You already sentenced yourself. She took a step back, arms still crossed like armor. Why are you really here? Because Eli wants a birthday dinner, I said. And he asked me to invite you. She blinked. That cracked her mask. Just a little. When? Next Friday. Small place downtown. Quiet. Good food. She hesitated. He's not angry at me? He doesn't know you called him a grenade that ruined our life in a text to your sister. Her mouth opened, then closed. No rebuttal. Just guilt flickering across her face like headlights on a rainy windshield. I didn't mean it like that, she said weakly. No, I said, walking to the door. You meant it exactly like that. She didn't stop me. She didn't apologize. She just stood there as I left, like a statue in a house too big for the truth. That night, I called Eli. She said maybe, I told him. He was quiet. Then, I don't want to force anything. You're not, I said. But she needs to see what truth looks like when it eats dinner across from her. He chuckled. You always talk like that? Only when I'm trying to stay sane. We hung up. I sat in my car, watching the rain hit the windshield like static. Somewhere behind me, Monica's candles were still burning, but the fire was long gone. You'd think meeting the man your wife left you for would come with more ceremony. Maybe some sort of slow-motion entrance. A thunderclap. At the very least, the sound of your own blood pressure spike. Instead, it came with a knock. A plain, firm, Tuesday evening knock. I opened the motel door, and there he stood. Jonah. Tan, fit, confident in the way only a man who's never been humbled by marriage can be. He looked like a catalog model for linen shirts and self-delusion. Adam Keller? He asked. That's me, I said, though part of me wanted to say, you've got the wrong guy. I'm the ghost in a husband's body. Try next door. He offered his hand. Bold move, considering. I stared at it. You lost. No, he said. But I figured if we're going to be in each other's lives, it's better to meet man to man. Man to man. That phrase always makes me laugh. Usually uttered right before someone tries to justify a gut punch with civility. All right, I said, stepping back. Let's have a chat. He entered like a man walking into a neutral zone, I scanning the room, probably noting the lack of photos, the travel-sized toiletries, the single suitcase in the corner. My life in exile. I didn't come to start anything, he said quickly. I know how this looks. I raised an eyebrow. Do you? Because from here, it looks like you're sleeping with a married woman who hasn't officially filed for divorce but has apparently already given you my seat at the dinner table. He nodded, hands in his pockets. I get it. I do. But I didn't start this. She came to me. That's supposed to make me feel better? No, he admitted. Just clearer. There was a moment of silence. He didn't feel it, which was surprising. Most men in his position rushed to explain how they didn't mean to fall in love, or it just happened, like affairs or weather systems no one can predict. But Jonah? Jonah just stood there, composed, like a man who's already winning the game and sees no need to spike the ball. I'm not here to apologize for being with Monica, he said eventually. But I am here to make something clear. I'm not trying to replace you. You're not even trying to respect me, I said. But go on. She's told me about Eli, he continued. About how much that's shaken things up. And I get it. That's a lot to process. I laughed. A dry, bitter sound that didn't even sound like me anymore. A lot to process? I echoed. Jonah, I found out I had a son, got kicked out of my house, discovered my wife was lying, and now I'm living in a motel watching sitcom reruns just to remember what normal feels like. Processing isn't the word. It's demolition. He looked down. Good. Let him stew in it. I didn't come here to fight, he said again. I just wanted to say, whatever happens with her and me, I'm not going to get in the way of you and Eli. And that, right there, was the moment. Not when he knocked, not when he spoke, but when he gave me permission. I stood up, walked toward him slowly. Not aggressively, just close enough to make the space uncomfortable. Let me be very clear, I said, voice steady. You don't get to tell me how to be a father. You don't get to decide how big or small your shadow is in my son's life. You're not a co-pilot. You're turbulence. And turbulence doesn't get a seat at the cockpit. Jonah opened his mouth. Closed it. Good choice. I don't hate you, I added. But I don't respect you either. You showed up late to a story that wasn't yours, wrote your name in the margins, and now you think you're the author. I'm not trying to take your place. You couldn't, I said. Because you're not built for it. He nodded once. Then again, like he finally understood the weight of the air between us. I'll leave, he said. You already did, I said, opening the door. He walked out. No dramatic speech. No forced handshake. Just a man who realized he'd walked into a room where the silence wasn't his to break. I shut the door. Sat back down. The room was quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet. The kind that doesn't feel lonely. The kind that feels earned. Later that night, Eli texted. Eli, still good for dinner Friday? Me, wouldn't miss it. Eli, cool. She said she'll come. I stared at those words for a long time. She said she'll come. Not she's excited. Not she wants to be there. Just, she'll come. Funny how even agreement from her feels like a warning label. I closed my phone. Turned off the TV. Laid back on the stiff motel bed and stared at the ceiling. Because Friday was coming fast. And with it, the kind of dinner that would either rebuild a family or rip the last threads of one apart. The restaurant was small. Cozy, if you were feeling generous. Dim lighting, dark wood, menus printed in that faux handwritten font that screamed we charge extra for breast X. Friday night. Eli's 18th birthday. The first one I'd spend with him, and possibly the last one we'd all be in the same room without a legal buffer. I got there early. 15 minutes early, to be exact. I'm not the kind of guy who shows up first on principle, but tonight, I needed the breathing room. The hostess smiled. Party of 3? 4, I said. And make sure we're seated somewhere with space. She raised an eyebrow. Expecting trouble? Expecting a conversation that doesn't belong on the speakerphone of the table next to us. She nodded. Say no more. I sat at the table, ordered a water, and waited. 5 minutes later, Eli walked in. He looked sharper than before, button-down shirt, clean jeans, nervous smile. He gave me a fist bump like we were teammates instead of two halves of an overdue reunion. You good? I asked. Getting there, he said. She's parking. I nodded, sipped my water, and tried to steady my pulse. Monica arrived 3 minutes later. Right on time, because of course she was. Punctuality was her last surviving virtue. She looked good. I'll admit it. Hair done, subtle makeup, neutral blouse, the kind of outfit that said I care, but not I dressed for you. A calculated effort. Hi, she said, sliding into her chair like she'd done nothing wrong in her entire life. Evening, I replied, polite as a butler with a grudge. We didn't speak for a moment. Eli filled the gap with idle chatter. Favorite movies, college applications, how he almost hit a squirrel last week. The usual birthday small talk. If your birthday also included two emotionally radioactive parents pretending they weren't in the middle of an undeclared war. The waiter arrived. Took our orders. I didn't bother reading the menu. I just asked for whatever they did best. When he left, Monica turned to me. Thank you for inviting me. Eli wanted you here, I said. Her smile froze. So it wasn't your idea? It was his birthday. I figured he gets a vote. Eli cleared his throat, trying to bridge the gap. Actually, I thought it might be nice for all of us to just hang out for a night. No drama. Monica nodded. Of course. I'm just glad we're all here. Then she looked at me. Really looked. You look tired. I smiled. Yeah. Motel pillows do that. She looked down. Guilty, maybe. Or calculating. With Monica, the difference was always in the fine print. I didn't mean for everything to explode like this, she said quietly. You didn't mean for it, I echoed. But you handed me the match and pointed at the gasoline. That's not fair. What's fair? I asked, leaning in. Telling people I cheated? Making Eli feel like he ruined something when you'd already let it rot. Eli shifted. Hey, maybe not the time. No, I said gently. He deserves to hear this. Because if I'm going to be in his life, he deserves the real version. Not the spin. Monica looked away. You're angry. I get it. No, I said. I'm not angry. I'm aware. There's a difference. The food arrived. We paused for polite thank yous and plate rearranging, the way people do when they want the conversation to stop without actually saying so. Eli picked at his pasta. So, college. I'm looking at a few places out west. Monica smiled. California? That's great, honey. I was thinking Arizona. Maybe New Mexico, he said. Closer to Dad. She blinked. You mean Adam? Yeah, he said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. It hit her. Right there at the table. She wasn't the center of this orbit anymore. And I didn't gloat. I just chewed my food and let her sit with it. She looked at Eli. I just hope you're not doing it out of guilt. I'm not, he said. I'm doing it because I want to know him. And because he showed up. That was it. The final blow. Not loud. Not cruel. Just factual. She didn't cry. Monica never cried when she was losing. She recalculated. When dessert came, a slice of chocolate cake with a sparkler shoved into the frosting, Eli grinned and leaned back. This is good, he said. We're figuring it out. We both nodded. Monica reached into her bag, pulled out a box. Here. For you. Eli opened it. A watch. Sleek. Probably expensive. Wow, he said. Thanks. I had it engraved, she added. He flipped it over. Read the inscription. Every second counts. Love, Mom. She looked at me as she said it. Like it was a lesson. Or a warning. When the check came, I grabbed it. No, Monica said, reaching for her purse. I've got it, I said. Consider it a thank you for showing up. And just like that, we stood. 3 people, tangled in years of silence and revelation. One of us still pretending it was all survivable. One of us still healing. And one of us just hoping to build something real from the wreckage. Outside, Eli gave me a hug. You did good, I said. He nodded. So did you. Monica turned to leave. But before she did, she looked back. Adam. Yeah, I meant it. I didn't want it to end this way. I nodded once. It didn't end. It evolved. She didn't know what to do with that. So she just walked to her car and drove off. I stood on the curb, watching her taillights fade like old memories. Eli turned to me. Want to grab a real dessert? Thought you were full. I'm 18, he said. I'm always hungry. We walked down the street. Two shadows stretched long in the amber light. For once, I didn't feel like a footnote in someone else's story. I felt like a father. After the dinner, things settled. At least on the surface. Monica kept her distance. Eli texted often, asked questions that had nothing to do with fatherhood and everything to do with life. What kind of music did you like in high school? What's the best excuse you ever gave to get out of a test? Do you believe people can change? I answered every one. Not because I had all the answers, but because no one had ever asked me before. Then came the envelope. It was slid under the door of my motel room one morning like a spy movie prop, unmarked, thick, no return address. Inside were photos. Not grainy tabloid nonsense. Clear. Close. Personal. Monica. And Jonah. At a cabin. Holding hands. In matching ropes. At a hot springs resort. Dated 2 months before Eli showed up. 2 months before our anniversary. 2 months before I was still calling her babe and buying her lotion with the scent she pretended not to like but always finished. I stared at the images, every inch of me cooling. Then came the note. Figured you should see what she was really doing while blaming you for everything. No signature. I had my suspicions. Janice. But whoever sent it, the message was clear. Monica hadn't just rewritten the story. She buried the lead under charm and legalese. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started planning. Because here's what you learn when you've been blindsided. You start looking in every direction, even the ones you used to trust. So I set up a trap. Not dramatic. Not illegal. Just revealing. I called Jonah. Meet me, I said. Just you and me. 10 minutes. He showed up at a park. That same linen shirt swagger, sunglasses at dusk, like an action figure who missed his casting call. What's this about? He asked, arms out. You lied to me, I said. He raised an eyebrow. About what? You said she came to you. You said you weren't involved until it ended. You told me you weren't trying to replace me. I pulled out a photo. The one with him rubbing her back in a hot tub. His expression didn't change, but something flickered. Guilt shadow, maybe. Look, he said. It got complicated. No, I said. It got convenient. That's not the same. I didn't want to be the bad guy, he muttered. I laughed. Then maybe don't do bad guy things. He turned to leave. What do you want, Adam? An apology? No, I said. I want you to remember this moment. Because later, when everything breaks, and it will, I want you to know I gave you a chance to walk away with some dignity. Is that a threat? No, I said, walking past him. It's a spoiler. The next week, Eli and I met again. Coffee this time. Easier terrain. I want to live with you, he said, casual like it was a weather update. I blinked. That's not how this works, Eli. I know. Legally, it's a mess. But I'm almost 19. I just need space. Real space. You talk to your aunt? She gets it, he said. Mom's been different since dinner. Quiet. Defensive. Like she's waiting for the next explosion. I didn't say anything. Did something happen? He asked. I looked out the window. Nothing I didn't already suspect. Just confirmation. He sipped his coffee. You going to tell her off? No, I said. I'm going to let the truth introduce itself. That night, Monica called. First time in weeks. Why is Eli talking about moving out? She asked. Because he's growing up. You're poisoning him against me. No, I said calmly. You did that yourself. I just stopped covering for you. Click. End of call. 2 hours later, a text from Janice. She's unraveling. Just thought you should know. I stared at the screen, thinking how fragile facades are. One photo. One conversation. That's all it takes. And we hadn't even reached the finale yet. I didn't plan revenge. Not in the traditional sense. But some wounds don't scream. They whisper. They calcify. 1 month after dinner, I delivered a package to Monica's door. Handwritten label. No return address. Inside, a binder. Neatly compiled. Photos. Dates. Statements from mutual friends. A short, typed note. Every story has a witness. These are mine. You're free to tell whatever version you like. Just know, I've archived the truth. That same week, I met with a lawyer. not to drag her through court. Just to protect what was left, my connection to Eli, my portion of the house, my dignity. Monica tried to call. Twice. I let it ring. Eli moved in 2 weeks later. Small apartment. 2 bedrooms. Quiet neighborhood. We shared dinners, shared silence, shared something that didn't need rescuing. One night, he asked, "Do you regret it?" What? Everything. I thought about that. About the years. The lies. The photo albums with smiles that aged badly. No, I said. Because I got you. He nodded. Then, what happened to Jonah? I smiled. Let's just say, he finally learned the difference between a temporary thrill and a permanent consequence. Monica faded. She didn't implode. She didn't beg. She simply receded, like the tide after a storm. No more texts. No more narratives. Just absence. And me? I didn't gloat. I didn't break. I rebuilt. Quietly. Steadily. With truth. In silence loud enough to fill every room she used to occupy.